So this, like I said, is the story of former Antifa member Jade. If you've watched my my podcast with Samantha, you'll have heard the story about how I had a friend in Antifa who was of Jewish Roma descent, who really thought that we were fighting against the Holocaust, really thought we were fighting the Nazis, and by the end of it, drug addicted, broken, diseased, angry, non-binary, just completely shattered. Took her out of the fight. So we're going to go into depth on that one, but we're also going to tell a story of a missing persons case. Now, the missing persons case here is very, very essential to her story, in the same way that the story of Larry Bollinger is essential to mine. She lost a friend. She lost somebody very important to her in a very, very tragic way. And I watched it destroy her and affect her decision-making. And I knew the angle of the story that I was going to tell. So I was like, okay, well, let's get a little more information. So I started listening to these videos. But I couldn't help but notice one discrepancy. But one angle that I know that I was going to come tell on here, no one's talking about. In the spirit of that, I'm actually going to be tagging this missing person's mother in this video. Because the story of Jade may add a little bit more light to the situation if this is an angle they haven't already heard.
And now she's recording me. I don't want to be recorded. You have to stop recording. It's the law. It's the law.
This is her room.
Stop recording.
This is her room. She's been acting erratic all morning.
See, look, she's recording me now. She's calling the police, and she wants me at her house. You have to evict me. I live here.
No, you don't. Look,
yes, I do.
There's fucking meth pipes. There's everything.
Are you serious? You sniff.
It's a downward spiral to the end of all times, and there's no chance that we can survive.
To restore order in Portland have poured petrol on disorder. What was a largely peaceful protest has escalated into violence. The main battle line is here, outside the federal courthouse. Protesters unable to pull down the new fence, throw fireworks over. Tear gas is fired back. Many here are prepared for this. But as federal agents emerge in their dozens, those in gas masks run too. Rubber bullets fired into the darkness. It's quite frightening.
This isn't the first time tear gas has been fired at protesters tonight, but it's the first time we've seen federal agents outside of the federal courthouse. And it's the first time that it's driven crowds away, but it doesn't look like they've gone far. Certainly it doesn't seem like either side is going to give up anytime soon.
Michael Bryson, and they are not slowing down 5 days later. KZI9.
27-year-old Michael Bryson has been missing for more than 2 months now, and the search is still very active.
The disappearance of Michael Bryson.
He went missing in 2020 after telling his parents he was going on a camping trip.
The party, or rave as it's been referred to, took place at the Hobo Campground just outside Dorena in the Umpqua National Forest.
70 million people every year are brought into this earth. What are they doing? Sucking up our resources. There's too many people, so what do? Just keep them around? Let's kill them. Let's get rid of them. Good. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. But you know what? We're at capacity.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Triple B. And today we're going to tell a story that honestly I've kind of wanted to tell from the beginning, but I didn't feel like I should, especially talking about ex-Antifa members. This person is ex-Antifa, but still very, very loyal to the ideology and queer Marxism and all these things. So it's not really a redemption arc type story. But I think it's important, and especially after I had the interview with former Antifa member Erick, which if you haven't seen that, you absolutely should go and see and share with all your friends because it's still suppressed to hell. Millions of people commented on all over the world over how this man was fake, and now we have the answer sitting here on the channel and 200 views. So every like and share helps on that one. It really does. But talking more with him about how gangs and drugs and party culture are very much a part of Antifa and how it leaves an impact really made me want to tell this story. And I woke up today not thinking it was going to take the route that it was. So this, like I said, is the story of former Antifa member Jade. If you've watched my my podcast with Samantha, you'll have heard the story about how I had a friend in Antifa who was of Jewish Roma descent, who really thought that we were fighting against the Holocaust, really thought we were fighting the Nazis, and by the end of it, drug addicted, broken, diseased, angry, non-binary, just completely shattered. Took her out of the fight. So we're gonna go into depth on that one, but we're also going to tell a story of a missing persons case. Now, the missing persons case here is very, very essential to her story, in the same way that the story of Larry Bollinger is essential to mine. She lost a friend. She lost somebody very important to her in a very, very tragic way. And I watched it destroy her and affect her decision-making. This young man's name is Michael Bryson. He was 27 years old, and he went missing at the hobo campgrounds in Oregon in 2020, a couple months before all this went down from this event, which we'll get into a little bit later. But my friend Jade was there with me when that happened. She was also a part of the Portland riots, the federal courthouse takeovers. Like, she was there most of the nights that Portland was on fire. So, with this missing persons case, I woke up and I'm like, well, this is an important part of her story. It's a friend she lost. So let me go through and read some of the articles, make sure I'm getting the names right, make sure I'm getting the dates right. Don't want to be disrespectful or anything. And then I realized there was a lot of videos on this. And I knew the angle of the story that I was going to tell. So I was like, okay, well, let's get a little more information. So I start listening to these videos. And not only does it line up with everything that she was telling me at the time, because I just learned about these videos this morning. I didn't realize there was this much coverage, that it was this big of a deal. Like, I knew it was a big deal, but I was mostly just hearing about it from, word of mouth chatter. But I couldn't help but notice one discrepancy. There's all these theories, there's all these conspiracies, but one angle that I know that I was going to come tell on here, no one's talking about. And in the spirit of that, I'm actually going to be tagging this missing person's mother in this video. Because the story of Jade may add a little bit more light to the situation if this is an angle they haven't already heard. And that angle, spoiler alert, is a drug deal that may have gone south. That doesn't seem to be mentioned anywhere. Yet I heard this story from Jade, who was best friends with, quite frankly, two of the main suspects behind his disappearance, who are also involved in BLM and Antifa. So once I noticed what I was sitting on and what was missing, I realized that this actually is a very, very important story to tell. So, without further ado, let's get into it. I met Jade right after I moved to the U of O campus. Like I've said before, I wasn't a student at U of O, but housing near that area was a lot cheaper than other places in town. So we had a two-bedroom, second-story apartment building over near Hilliard Market. and Jade was my neighbor, as were her two roommates, who were also people who rolled with me in Antifa and some of the protest. Now, Jade was, I think, mid to late 30s. She's older than I am, and she had a lot of connections to the older anarchist and groups like Occupy and all this, and like the older Antifa crowd, because she'd been there for a minute. She wasn't a native to Oregon. She was from Florida, and she had that Florida girl energy, which is why me and her vibe so much. Like, we were crazy fucks, and she could fucking party. She could fucking put it down. She was a bigger alcoholic than I was, which was kind of shocking. It'd take a lot to outdrink me, and heavy drug user. But by the time that I had gotten to know her in the beginning, she had said she had gotten off meth and heroin and a couple other things, and she still partied, did cocaine, smoked, all that shit. But as far as like getting off meth and heroin and all that, fantastic. It makes the rest of that shit like it's nothing, So I was proud of her for that. Saw her as strong for that. Looking in hindsight, I admired a lot of her worst qualities because she was an egotistical narcissist. I really hate to say it, but very me energy. I'm going to save the world. Everyone has to bow down before what I think and I say, and I'm going to go pick a fight with anybody I disagree with, typically shielding it behind the moniker of, well, I'm doing this for my friends. I'm doing this to protect my community. That's why I'm going to punch you in the face. She was like kind of that level of crazy. Like, she just wanted to fight half the time. But in my head, that's what you want when you're out in the streets, right? So we go to different protests and meetups together. But she was way more into the heavier shit. Like, she would drive out to Portland on a regular basis with a lot of her friends. And they would attend these riots. These friends, including the two twins who were suspects in this young man's disappearance, whose names are Kalia and Kasaya. Now, these are their real names. And the reason I can say their real names is because in the videos that you're going to see, they're actually mentioned by name, and also they're both dead now from drug overdose. The first one was accidental. From what Jade told me, she had run out of some of her medication, so she went to a dealer to get some Xanax or something like that, and it turned out to be fentanyl. Overdosed and died. Now, this is an actual picture right here of me tattooing Jade. And this is the first time that I ever tattooed another living human being outside of myself. And there's a reason that I'm showing you this picture. Because this night, actually, I was tattooing a rebel symbol on the back of her neck. Something that should have taken like an hour and a half. Simple line work. It took about 6 hours. She kept sneaking off to make phone calls, kept getting blackout drunk. Admittedly, we were doing cocaine. Never get a tattoo from a guy doing cocaine. Wasn't smart. Wasn't making the best decisions. I was just starting. We were trying to stay up. And as you can clearly see from the picture, the cocaine was not doing the trick. She was out of it. And Kasaya had actually called her once or twice in the middle of that, where she had to leave for an hour or two because she was threatening to commit suicide over this whole Michael Bryson situation. So basically, like I said, the twins were suspect in foul play and had been getting asked questions, and there was a lot getting out in the community. They had his phone at the moment of his disappearance. One or two of them was sneaking away from the campground. There was just a lot of really odd things that happened, and I'm going to share a full YouTube video after this so that people can get the full story of Michael Bryson and what happened there and a little bit more context, because it's really insane. But Jade took the side of Kalia and Kasaya. And there was a lot of beef growing in town over this because there was people who really believed that these girls murdered him. So this wasn't just causing like a divide in the partying and the rave scene. This was causing a divide in Antifa, because a lot of the people that went to this rave were Antifa, BLM, leftist, queer Marxist. So the fact that somebody died and there was suspicion of each other, that was causing a lot of a rift between a lot of people in town who, at least from what I can remember, I can't remember which one I saw, Kalia or Kasaya, but I would see them at the protest and some of the heavier moments, and they were there. They were loud. I don't want to disrespect the dead, but I never liked their energy. I ran into them a couple times at a few parties, once or twice next door when they were throwing a shindig. I never liked their energy. I'm not going to say that they killed him because I have suspicions about what happened, which we'll get into. But, yeah, it was a dark time for a lot of people in that space. And for Jade, she was having a very hard time grappling with everything that had happened, on top of the fact that this was 2020 and this is when the George Floyd riots were hitting hard. So not only is her friend dead, missing, all of this happening, her best friends are being accused of murder, but the world is ending and World War III and Civil War is starting. So she's not doing good at this point at all. And she's starting to lose her sanity. And, she broke down at one point because we would have a lot of talks in hearts where there's a lot of times where I had to be like, girl, you're too fucked up, you're too drunk, you're too angry. Let's sit, let's talk, let's chill. And then it's just trauma dumping, right? You hear a whole life story, the abuse with her father, running away from home, anytime she was sexually assaulted, all the horror stories would just come up to the surface. It was very, very bad. But one of the stories that she told me that I noticed isn't in any of these videos, she did mention, she said that he was laced with LSD, that he got way too high, and that there was some drug dealers that were coming from Portland. In the video clips, I'll present them here. The kids, at first they were saying there was no LSD, and the stories would change between the people and they investigated as to what drugs were there. At first they were saying it's just cocaine and ketamine, and then the story kept changing. So what she believed is he got some LSD, and then there was concern on her end because there were some dealers that were coming down from Portland, gangsters types, and that there was some sort of drug deal that may have gone south. And that was her worry. And that's what she thought everyone was staying quiet. I didn't see that in any of the videos. I saw the part about LSD, him wandering off, the story's changing. It's the parents described as really weird. They didn't hear anything until about 12 hours after his disappearance. And when they got to the campsite, people were just chilling, smoking, partying like nothing had happened. No one was out looking for him. The more you look into the videos about this, it's some of the most suspicious shit I've ever heard. But if what her mental breakdown told me is true, then perhaps, and I'm just a spectator on YouTube here. No one go playing keyboard warrior. This is just my speculation. This was a story I was going to tell before I watched these videos. But now that I've watched these videos, I'm like, oh, this is some real shit. This could be some real shit. And it's important. But she really believes that a drug deal went south. And if that's the case, everything in this kid's missing his story, it can very easily be explained with a couple drug dealers coming in at some point in the middle of the party and switching up the dynamics, introducing new drugs. And one of the last texts that his sister had gotten from him was essentially that he had a bad vibe, that there was going to be some people there that he wouldn't mesh with. And that was one of the last texts he sent. I could tell you he died in August of 2020, I do believe. March, May. So this would happen on my wrist here this night, May 30th, which again is tattooed May 31st because I was an alcoholic. Got the date wrong. But this would have been 3 months prior. Yeah, 3 months prior. And this is when Eugene got like the worst of like the action as far as the riots went. We didn't get as crazy as Portland, thankfully. But this was the night after May 29th, after Antifa stormed the White House. COVID's going on, and Donald Trump institutes nationwide COVID lockdowns, particularly in areas where Antifa was known to meet up. So they were trying to set a city curfew to block off our actions. Of course, half the town came out, and with that, there was parades of federal officers and state troopers and police and riot, all that. So that's the night that we have 3 minutes to return home. We get the countdown. As soon as they hit the 3-minute mark, LRADs go off, sonic ringing in our ears. We're all trampling each other. I accidentally trip her to the ground. She scrapes her flesh off the back of her arm, and I have to pick her up. We're running, breaking through backyards, running through alleyways. One of our friends, her roommate, we'll call her Red, hid in some bushes for a little bit until nearby neighbors waited until the riot guards left, and then invited her up into her apartment and hid her there for a few hours. Unmarked vehicles tried to run me and my friends down in the streets. Saw teenagers getting shot in the back with freaking tear gas canisters. There was gas everywhere, smoke everywhere, drones in the sky. I get about a block away from my house. We're trying to get a homeless person to follow us because he was walking downtown, had no clue anything was going to happen. Suddenly I'm looking over, 2 cops are pointing guns at my face, not like riot guns, but like real guns. It was a very, very traumatic night. So that's about what was going on in her life at the time. But her and her friends and the people that would go to these parties and would have these meetups, they weren't just connected to the rioters in Portland and Eugene and Salem and all that. They were connected to a lot of big-time drug dealers. This is a party culture. This is not a revolution. This is a party culture. And, I think this poor kid had no idea what he was getting into and the type of people he was getting involved with. Now, Jade told me she had known him for years and years, but it didn't seem like this kid was a radical at all. In fact, I'm going to share this. It's a tad bit lengthy, but I want to share this clip here because it shows the kind of young man that he was. And this is exactly how Jade would describe him to me. This was a very, very important person to her. This was a loss to her. I don't think she's covering up a murder, but I think the cops aren't being told something. And from what it sounds like, the cops may not have been told that. So, I want y'all to listen to this little clip and imagine it's your son. Imagine it's your brother. Imagine it's your friend. Imagine it's yourself. That's what I did for this one. I imagined it was me. And man, I almost teared up a couple times. Like, this is not an easy story to digest. And, this story was going to be a lot more about Jade than Michael. But as I was listening to these videos, it very much went to show how this death could affect her so much. So let's watch that clip real quick. And, I just want to say, because I am going to tag his mother in this, on the off chance that something here that I'm saying could contribute. I hope that I'm not being disrespectful in presenting this, especially in this manner. I'm sure if you're looking at my channel, this is a very weird, crazy place. Why would a guy like me be talking about this? Like I said, this is a story about my friend Jade. Again, this is the nickname. But this channel is to talk about my friends in the Antifa movement, in the activist space, in the 2020 era, and what caused their downfall, what broke them as individuals, and how did that contribute to their lives moving forward? Because in the case of Jade, it destroyed her. In the case of Keziah and Kalia, it killed them. And it almost killed Jade. She herself had a fentanyl overdose about a year later after Keziah's. And I didn't even learn about Kalia's death till this morning when my husband told me, because he actually used to party with them back in the day. He was a raver. So they all used to do drugs together. So Yeah, there's a lot to digest here. It's very, very odd. So let's just watch this clip real quick and then we're going to move on with it.
So let's obviously first get started with who Michael Bryson is. So Michael grew up in Harrisburg, Oregon, which is a small town, and he lived there for pretty much his entire life. He was the youngest child of Tina and Parrish Bryson, and he shared a really close bond with his sister, Krista. And from a very early age, Michael was involved in everything. He was in church, he was in sports, he was in Boy Scouts. Like, he always wanted to try everything at least once. And he was also the kind of kid that never met a stranger. His parents have said that he had this way of making people feel seen, pulling them in, making sure that no one ever felt left out. And I feel like I say that about so many people, but I can even tell through hearing people talk about Michael just how much everyone means it. His mom and sister said that after his disappearance, they would go and speak to all these different people that knew him, and each one would be like, hey, I'm so-and-so, Michael's best friend. And it got to the point where people would walk up to them, and before they could even say anything, they'd be like, let me guess, you're Michael's best friend. That was just the kind of person he was. He loved everyone around him. He made everyone feel comfortable. He was just a really, really friendly guy. Michael was someone that poured himself into the people around him. He was the kind of friend that would stay up all night talking if someone needed support, the kind of person that made sure others laughed, even when he wasn't doing well himself. His family talks about his beautiful smile all the time and how genuine it was. But even when he was feeling low, even when he was not at his top tier emotionally, he would always put that smile on for others. He also had a love for music that ran really deep, and that passion became an outlet for him. He loved to DJ at small shows. He dreamed of eventually building it into something bigger. His family remembers how well he balanced his lighter, fun-loving side with a thoughtful and very serious one. He felt things incredibly deeply. He could be goofy, but he was also the person that friends could lean on when life got heavy. He was not one to shy away from anything. His father, Parrish, has described him by saying, quote, there was a very serious and deep side of Michael. As much fun as Michael had, he loved just as hard. If you were Michael's friend, you knew it. Now, Michael's compassion also extended far beyond just his hometown and his tight circle. He, like I said, was very active in the church, which led him to going on several mission trips. And so I think twice he went to Mexico to build homes. And then when he was just 17 years old, he actually joined an outreach trip to Africa. This mission in particular was to go and encourage children in some of the rural villages to come into town to go to school, because going to school meant access to things like food and water and opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have, at least as readily accessible in their villages. And this trip ended up really changing Michael. He witnessed hardships that were really difficult to process at the age of 17. And when he returned home, his family said they noticed right away that something in him was just different. And unfortunately, it seemed to lead into anxiety and depression. Michael began to withdraw a lot. He was spending less time with friends and family, and that used to be like his top priority, was being with those that he was closest to. He was struggling a lot, and these battles just continued to follow him into adulthood. But being the optimistic, forever pushing forward person that he kept going. He was always a very determined person, so he just kept on pushing forward. Now, after high school, Michael ended up enrolling at Northwest Christian University for about a year. I believe this is where his sister went. And during that time, his family started to notice even more changes in who he spent his time with, how he was coping with a lot of his mental struggles. He was never formally diagnosed, but his family believes that he may have been suffering from undiagnosed bipolar disorder. And they tried to get him to go to doctors, but, at that point, he's an adult, he's off on his own. And so he would start with doctors, and then he would stop going, and he would start with medications, and then he would abruptly quit because he did not like the way it was making him feel. And so, unfortunately, this led to Michael turning to self-medicating, which is a choice that many, many people struggling with mental illness make when the right treatment feels out of reach. Nothing else felt like it was helping him. And so after leaving Northwest Christian, after about a year, he ended up transferring to, I believe, a local community college in Lane County, and also Oregon State University through a dual enrollment program, because he just felt like maybe that original school was not meant for him and he just needed to try something different. But it got to the point where I think Michael realized school was just not working out for him. That was not the path that he needed to be on. And so eventually he ended up dropping out and he moved back home, hoping to find his rhythm and place in the world. But like so many young adults facing uncertainty, Michael hit some really hard moments. He had been dabbling in different drugs and drinking and ways to self-medicate, and he definitely had been messing with some of the harder things, but he really hit a hard low when he fell into meth use. And this only lasted a few months, according to his family, and it wreaked havoc in his life. It was an incredibly difficult chapter for both him and his family. They were forced to set pretty firm boundaries to protect themselves, while also trying to balance encouraging him to seek help, which is not an easy task with someone who is deep into the grip of addiction. And so thankfully, after just a couple of months, Michael himself reached a point where he realized he could not do this anymore. He wanted to change. He wanted to be done with it. Like, this was not what he wanted. And so he actually reached out to his parents and begged them for help, saying he needed to get away from this drug. And so his parents, without hesitation, agreed to drive him to a rehab facility in California. But unfortunately, also, like is very common, on the way, Michael began to panic. That addiction started talking in the back of his brain again. And so he freaked out. He was overwhelmed about what was ahead. And unfortunately, it led to a really tricky, potentially dangerous situation where he did not want to be there anymore. He did not want to be in that car. He did not want to be going to rehab. And so police ultimately became involved. And I think at first his family said he was expected to be in jail for just a couple of days, and then they would hopefully be able to talk to him at that point and encourage him to go to rehab again. But what ended up happening is Michael spent nearly a month in jail, detoxing there, before he eventually was released. And at that point, he went into an actual treatment facility. And so as painful as this was and unexpected as it was, his family has said that this might have been what saved his life. The police being involved, him ending up being there for a month, because if it had been left up to him, they were so worried that this addiction would speak louder and he would be dragged right back into it. And so he successfully completed rehab. Michael stayed clean from hard drugs for more than 2 years. He was still occasionally drinking. He still occasionally used cannabis, but overall, he was rebuilding his life. His family began to see hope again, and they believed that he was finding himself a path forward. By 2020, Michael had a steady job at a bar and grill in Eugene, and he talked about applying for electrician apprenticeships, something that he thought could give him a strong future. He really was rebuilding, and he would occasionally slip back into old habits, but his family saw him trying and heavily praised it. They saw the person that they knew and loved working to find balance again. And everything did genuinely seem okay. The bond that Michael had with his family never faltered through all of this. He stopped by to see his family often. They would have meals together. Again, he was really close to his sister. He always made sure to check in as well. His family said that even at his lowest, Michael never went more than 3 days tops, and that's even pushing it, without reaching out somehow. He would send a call or a text, a Facebook message. If it wasn't through his phone, it was through someone else's, because he wanted his parents to know he was okay, and he wanted to make sure they weren't worried about him. And while it did seem like he was doing really good for quite some time, leading up to his disappearance, his family did notice that he was dabbling in harder drugs again. At first, they weren't quite sure what exactly it was. But if you're someone who's lived with anyone that has addiction, struggles with drug use, you can immediately tell usually when something's going on. And so they knew in their mind when Michael was coming home and like immediately crashing for hours that something was happening. And eventually, I don't know when, they ended up learning that he was using K. And I'm going to be saying a lot of different things in this video and hoping that you're gathering what I'm saying so it's not instantly demonetized and hidden from the algorithm. But he was using K, and it worried them deeply. But at the same time, they knew Michael and they knew that he would find his way again. Like, this was a cycle that he constantly fought against, and they were hoping for the best. And so this brings us to Michael's disappearance.
So that's the type of downfall that happens in these spaces, especially in these blue states. You know, you hear the story of this kid, he's going to a Christian university, he's doing great, going to Africa, you know, helping out all these different poor people, changes his life around, soul hardens a little bit, realizes how crazy the world is. And then just something after that just kind of got stuck there. And then you bring in the drug addiction, and you bring in the parties, and then you bring in people like me or Jade or any of these other people who are super, super radical in our off time. We're happy and fun at the parties. We can have a good time, but we're rageful and we're angry. And quite frankly, we're bloodthirsty when we get in the streets. That's the type of person I was. That's unfortunately the type of person Jade still is. At least last I spoke to her about 2.5 years ago. All of a sudden she's non-binary. She's cut her hair. She's telling me about all the people she beats up for not calling her they, them. She's on fentanyl. Her skin looks terrible. You can tell she's self-harming again. And it's just like, people in town will be like, oh, she's doing so much better. She's finding herself. No, she's not. No. And I love her, but, I'm calling her out on her shit on this video because, this is a girl I tried to talk to about her drinking problem, and she literally threatened to have someone in Antifa come break my legs with a baseball bat. So these are not the most stable of people. It just goes to show how big of a whole fucking mess this thing has become. People watch the news, they still think it's about the right versus left, or Proud Boys versus Antifa, BLM versus ALM. It's nothing like that. There's an underbelly to all of this. And at the end of the day, most people on my side were drug addicts. And they got into a lot of crazy misadventures. And they saw a lot of bad shit, and they made a lot of bad friends along the way. Friends who, if my theory is right and what she's saying is correct, can wind up killing your friend. Now, again, this is speculation. But again, if I were the parent of a missing child, I would want to hear all angles of the story. And it seems like that's really what this family's trying to do. They put together an organization dedicated to helping people out in situations like this. They're putting in so much love into their community from this loss. And it just shatters my fucking heart. And again, I'm just learning about most of this today. But you got to realize a lot of people in these far left extremist spaces, a lot of these radical spaces, they're coming from a place of loss. They're coming from a place of addiction and trauma bonding. This kid was very much an empath, it seems. And, like I said, I've heard all of the same praises from my friend Jade, my old friend Jade, not my friend anymore, but from her about how kind-hearted this kid was and how much he meant to her and how much he could change the mood. Which really goes to show that's really what a lot of these people want. They want the love. They want the light. They want the understanding. They want the deep conversations. They want to feel understood, and they want to feel heard. But the good die young. And it makes me really sad because I can really tell if this young man's life continued, he would have continued to inspire so many other people and touch their hearts. I didn't know him. I never met him. But I saw his face every day. It was on almost every telephone pole or building in Eugene. And that's one of the things that really led to her downfall is, I remember we went out a couple times and she would walk next to a telephone pole and she'd break down crying. And then she'd start telling the stories. Out of that, all the Antifa trauma, the police are going to kill me, they're going to find us. Donald Trump's going to throw us all in a camp. This is a Holocaust. This is the end. She stopped leaving the house. She just could not take it anymore. She couldn't stand seeing his face. She couldn't stand seeing the community that we destroyed. She couldn't see that she herself was the one who destroyed her community with her actions. Same with me. because the goal of Antifa was to destroy our communities. And we did that with riots and violence, changing local policies, drugs, weapons, fire. But she can never accept that, and that's one of the reasons I can't talk to her anymore. Just because it was all white people, it was all racist, it was all Nazis, it was all Donald Trump. We didn't make this world, they did. And she could never stand to be corrected on that. You know, last time I talked to her was actually right after my first YouTube appearance on Buck Angel, coincidentally after she came out to me as non-binary. And I told her that. I'm like, look, I'm trying to call out Antifa for all the bad shit that they did. This is crazy. I want her stories to be heard. And she just went off about, oh, well, he's a transphobe and a Nazi, and how could someone like that say that I don't exist? And I'm just sitting here like, your little made-up identity didn't exist 3 weeks ago. And I'm sorry, in case she ever does see this video, I'm going to say this publicly too. You are putting your family and your friends through so much shit for your fucking made-up identity. And it's sad. And a lot of people are doing this. You're breaking their hearts. You're breaking our hearts by playing make-believe this hard. Let me tell you what I think transgenderism is. Actually, let me tell you what I think transsexualism is first. Transsexualism comes from gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is a very real and severe medical disorder that makes you feel a disconnect between your body and your brain. You legitimately, if you're a man, feel like a woman. If you're a woman, you feel the opposite. There is a tick in your brain that you cannot turn off. And the point of transsexualism was a series of surgeries and socialization and a physical transformation, a real physical transformation that takes a lot of work and effort and money and pain. And I've seen this in a lot of people. Buck Angel, like I said, being the perfect example, is he was one of the first that had to go through this. And that brings them relief. And there is nothing wrong with that at all, because they're doing what they need to do to feel better. And most of these people are not perverts. They're not sexual deviants. They are people just simply trying to blend in and exist in this world. Now, let me tell you what I think transgenderism is and all this neo-pronoun nonsense. I think it's a rewriting of yourself, and I think it's a rewriting of your soul. In the same way that satanic ritual abuse survivors and MK Ultra survivors and people have gone through this process, the thing that you have to do is strip yourself of so much trauma. Strip yourself from your family, strip yourself from your friends, strip yourself away from your own mind, heart, soul, and body. And they have to rewrite their identities. New names, new backstories, new alters. It's mind-washing, and it's trauma. And that's what transgenderism is, and all this queer Marxist crap. Only there's not people doing it to you per se. You do it to yourself. Society may pat you on the back along the way. There's sure, there's social contagion. But it's self-abuse to the point of making yourself into a make-believe character. And that's what Jade did. Not only that, she turned herself into a Nazi. She had to go and demonize the other half of society, and she sit there and ignore the things that I was trying to say. Well, you're a Jewish girl, right? Isn't it eugenics to mutilate children like this? To alter people's DNA, to do... The LGBT community is just a playground for mutilation practice. You don't see this as wrong? You don't get a Mengele vibe from this at all? No? You're non-binary? Okay. Fine. Well, I remember walking by the bar one day, and it's still COVID, and she can't get in because she doesn't have her vaccination card. Neither do I. I, of course, can go into this bar because I know the owner and you get special permissions. But she wasn't allowed. She wasn't clean like the rest of society. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, I mean, you know, I know the owners. Let's just go talk to them real quick. Be like, hey, put on a mask. You know, we can go figure this out. Like, this isn't fair. You shouldn't be barred from going out into a bar for not having your COVID vaccine or not having your card. Well, it's okay. Let's just ignore it and go. No, you should. No. It's for the best. It's for society. I get it. And I just kind of kept pushing it. I'm like, girl, come on. What's happened to you? And she's just like, I want to smoke. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to get political. And I'm like, ugh, that's how far you've gotten. You used to be political 99% of the time. So what does she do? She sits down. We light a joint, smoking a cigarette. Oh, you got to see this guy on my phone. This is one of my best friends. And she starts playing this DJ rapper. And what's he rapping about? Fighting for your freedom. You know, anti-Hitler lyrics, anti-Holocaust lyrics. It's like a Mortal Technique kind of vibe. And I got mad at her and I looked at her and I'm like, are you fucking serious right now? She's like, what? I said, are you serious? You don't see how much of a hypocrite you're being right now. Like, this is ridiculous. I don't even remember how the rest of that day went, but I remember it was the last time I saw her. I just remember being that disappointed in her. You know, she was there when the federal courthouses were attacked. There's footage out there somewhere, and they're like playing the Imperial March in a band, and they're ripping down the fences. She's one of the people that got past the fence. Her friends, people that she would bring over to my house, were people who helped set fire in these buildings. One of them she wound up sleeping with and contracted scabies from. I believe this was shortly after the Michael Bryson incident. And I watched her flesh rot away like she was Freddy Krueger. And then I watched as she took up using heavy drugs again because she was using it as an excuse to mask the skin conditions that come from narcotic use. She would just blame it on the scabies. She became disgusting. And it may not sound like it, but I do say this with love. Because I want people who are in these spaces to snap out of it and get out. And I want people who aren't in these spaces and who may be considering it to hear these stories and think, maybe not. Maybe I'll go to school, get a job, have some wife and kids, husband and kids, whatever. Maybe that's not what I want in life. Maybe I don't want to go to raves out in the middle of the woods when my friends mysteriously vanish. Maybe I don't want to go get myself involved in riots and think that the cops are tracking me down 24/7. Maybe I don't want to try these mystery drugs and get in a fentanyl overdose and wind up in the back of an ambulance. You know, these are cautionary tales. But, yeah, that's a bit about the story of Jade. You know, I'm sure there's some other stuff that I can go into, but I feel like that says a lot. And maybe I'll tell some other stories of some other people I knew in the group too, because there's some other horror stories to be sure. You know, I'm just kind of killing time before we have our last podcast, which I haven't even hit up Mark Kornicki, the next guy we're going to have on, because I've kind of been enjoying trying to get out some of these last more heavier points, because I am going to miss this channel. But yeah, after everything that I heard and listened to today in regards to the situation on top of what I know, you know, Miss Bryson, if you're listening to this, again, I hope I haven't been disrespectful in any way by sharing this story. I'm not doing this to politicize your son. I'm not doing this to cause some sort of controversy. This is just a part of my story, and what happened to your son is just an extension of it. But I think that little fact that at least I was told of a drug deal, and the fact that it came from the best friend of the two suspects, there's something really weird about that. And, you know, I share a lot of crazy stuff on this page publicly because I want us to just expose the truth. No matter what that truth is about any story, we just need to live in truth and have our stories be heard in the hopes that it can help somebody else in some form or fashion. So I pray that you and your family are doing well. Thank you for the love you've given back to your community in just trying to help others. And I know that listening to a guy like me go on about weird stuff like this may not be easy, and it may seem so random, but these are the stories of my friends. And my friends had a lot of good people that inspired them. And I'm hoping one day that the love and wisdom and light that your son once offered my friend will someday click into her head a little bit and maybe bring her back in the same way that the good friends that I lost did that for me. We got to remember who we are, where we come from, and who helped to get us there. So it sounds like your son was a beautiful soul. And it makes a lot of sense why it destroyed her so much. And Jade, if you're ever listening to this, I pray you're doing okay. And you know damn well that I've been very critical, especially in this video, but people need to know these stories because they can't go and kill themselves like you are. You are killing yourself. And it was really sad to see such a good person go downhill so bad. So, just another horror story, you guys. I am going to upload about an hour or so video that I've listened to probably at least twice now in regards to this whole situation. And, just to remind people out there, Antifa is not a revolution. It's a party. And it's a really crappy party. You don't want to go to it. You don't want to get involved with these people. The best thing I think for a lot of people, if you don't intend to go and you're not there to make a conversation or there to try to change Antifa's mind, just give them space. Give them space and isolation. These people shouldn't be encouraged in their bad behavior anymore. Stories like this are way too common. And future generations need to know how stupid all of this has gotten. The revolution's over. World War III is around the corner. We helped destroy a nation. So let's start sharing our stories and trying to educate the next generation on what not to do. Don't do drugs. Don't join up with gangs and cults and domestic terror groups. Get a job. Get two if you gotta. Hell, you'd be better off playing video games all day than getting involved with this crap. Doesn't that sound more fun, playing video games all day? I wish that's what I did back then. Just play video games all day instead of going screaming, F you, at the cops. Oh, my life would be in such a better place. But I made the choices I did, and now I have to come in here and talk to all you people, which admittedly is a pleasure. I'm very grateful for all of y'all's support and being here to listen to these stories. So, pray for your neighbor, look out for your friends, choose love, choose light, choose Renaissance, and let's just try to end stories like this. Let's do what we can to make sure that these things don't happen to people. Be your story like Michael's or Jade's or Kasaya or Kalia's. These are cautionary tales, and we need to understand them, and we need to learn from them, and we need to share them. So, you guys, peace and love. Y'all have a beautiful day, and take care of each other. I love y'all.
Guess I best be on my way.
Well, I think we need to talk, son.
No, sir. I gotta be on my way.
Best get your wits about you before you... I want to tell you about that.
Why you got me chained? You been doing to me?
I ain't laid a hand on you except to break your fever. Like I said,
Get this goddamn chain off me!
Look, girl, you been running wild on me. Between them fits and them fever dreams you having, I've been chasing you all over this place at night.
Well, I'm woke now. You can take this off.
No, you ain't right yet.
I'm right enough to stand on my own 2 feet. Now get this goddamn chain off me.
Why you let them men treat you like that?
What?
All them men you up under. Why you let them do you like that?
What the hell you know about me? You ain't got no right to talk to me about that shit. Who the fuck do you think you are?
I saved your life, girl. I can do and say whatever the fuck I want. Now I didn't give you enough change so you can get around the house here. You can get the kitchen, bathroom back yonder. We got enough food around here. A few more swallows left in that medicine over there.
Whatever you want, you know, if you want to have me, you can take me. I'll do whatever you like. Just when you're done, I gotta go. You know, because I can't stay here with you.
God seen fit to put you in my path. And I aim to cure you of your wickedness.
You some kind of pervert?
No, ma'am.
Some crazy Jesus freak? You know, fuck the spirit in me?
You watch your tongue in my house.
Look at mister.
Now you sick. You
Mister.
got a sickness.
I will
We done
do-
broke the
I will
fever.
do whatever you
Now
want.
we gonna break the whole of that what got
I
on.
can't stay here. I can't stay here.
We ain't gonna be moved. Yeah, gal. I ain't gonna be moved on this. You can holler all you want. Ain't nobody gonna hear you. Ain't gonna bend my will, neither. Right or wrong, you gon' mind me. Like Jesus say, I'm gonna suffer you. I'm gonna suffer you. Get your ass back in my house.
Who's your little bitch?
Nah, bro, that's like my little sister.
Alright, check it. I got 100 OC 80s, 500 Zanny bars, 520 to Addy. I'm low on bikes, so you gonna cop them bikes, you better cop them today, cause I got like 50 left. I got a swap of that Cali Medicinal and an ounce of Molly.
Yeah.
So what's the math on that?
You know, you have the standard drug and alcohol addiction, but this is something that's very important. A lot of them have been victims of rape, incest, abuse. A lot of them, the culture in Eugene, like, guys can be sleazy in general, I get that. But up there, Eugene is very, very rapey. Very, very rapey.
Rapey?
It's, yeah. It's,
you want no fentanyl?
with my own eyes.
Nah, man, I'm cool off that shit. There's too many ODs, man. I don't want the heat.
About you, little sis? You ever try fentanyl?
No.
Nah, she's good, bro.
You let big brother choke you?
I don't know.
Don't look at him, look at me. You ever try it?
Yo, for real, bro. I don't want her fucking with that shit.
Tell him shut the fuck up.
You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never...
Congratulations, you are still alive. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive, but not you, not anymore.
Amanda, do not be afraid. Your life has just begun.